What's up, everybody? My name is Indy, and I just want to welcome you here. That gentleman next to me is Mr. J. Powell from Powell Group Consulting, and welcome to another amazing, exciting episode of Indie Game Business. Today, we are talking about doing a Barrell roll. We've got James Barrell, and he's going to talk about why you need a good producer. Also, don't forget to unmute in Discord, Jay.
I did. Jay.
Oh yes, Tripwire presents the most important thing of this right here. Thank you so much, Tripwire presents for being an amazing sponsor of Indie Game Business.
All right, so this is one of those shows that I've been trying to put together for 4 years, and Heather tried to talk me out of doing this in December. She's like, "We're already like going into January," and I'm like, no. It's James. It's low stress.
No stress. No, if we have stress, then I'm hanging up.
We're gonna have fun. We're gonna learn some stuff. But James is one of my oldest and most dearest friends in the industry. And originally, part of this podcast was I was going to try to have James and I come on and talk about games each week because, oh my God, we give each other hell about everything. And we have many varying opinions on everything from marketing to production to whatever. And all James' opinions are wrong. So
here we go. Already. All
yes,
mine are wrong. Already.
So we're going to have fun today. If you've got questions about production at all, anything,
product or production, I'm happy. Yep.
Yeah. And if you want dirt on me, you can get it out of James as well.
You can bring a whole shovelful. I mean, a whole whatever it's called. Fucking.
All right, so let's start with a fun question, James.
Yeah. Why
don't you tell the listeners how you got into the industry, and then walk us through your career up to this point?
Oh my God. I can answer how I got in the industry. Can I use names? By the way? I was working at GameStop. No, at the time, it was GameStop. I was working at GameStop, and I was like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, I forget, a long ass time ago. University Mall in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, right next to Chick-fil-A. Right? Mr. Kirk Owen comes walking in. He had 4 random titles, and I said to the guy, "Why do you have 4 random titles? Who buys this shit?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I run an agency, and would you want to come in and take a look at titles?" I'm like, "Sure, I will take a look at titles and see if they have any value." But yeah, it was because he had 4 random. I think it was one: a strategy, a flying, a racing, and a shooting. I mean, they were completely different genres. I didn't know, and I always questioned my customers because that's how I worked. And then, yeah, he's like, "Hey, do you want to come on down?" And then I met you, and then my life became a shit show. So let me see. My career started with you guys doing agency work. Saw some incredible games. Saw some shitty games. So let me give you a little bit of insight on that. So at the time, people would have titles that if they hadn't need legs, and I'll never forget. There was some guy who put something across my desk, and I played it. I did the write up, and you came to where I was sitting, and you were like, "You can't say this. Like, you cannot go back to the person and say this." I was like, "But it's all true. Like, how can I not? It's all true. This game sucks." But at the same time, we had some really great titles come through, and then some of them had some legs, some of them did not, like the Kama Sutra claymation porn that I could see thumbprints on the actual, right? And then
I remember that one,
right?
Yes.
And the game, you had to rescue your grandfather that was in he was in the shitter outside, and he had really bad gas, and you had to find the key for his what's it called? The outside toilet. I'm drawing a blank.
Outhouse.
You had to find the key for the outhouse. I remember walking through the living room, and on the side of the thing there was this screen. And on the side of the thing, it literally said child porn across the thing. And I'm like, what is this?
Yep.
Or the game that was trying to be Quake, and then you press instead of the BFG button, you break out 2 middle fingers, and you flipped off the world, and everything died in front of you. So yeah, so that's how. And then what happened was you guys were like, "Hey, we really want to make Nintendo games. We don't have any kind of process. Make it happen." And remember, Lloyd walked into office and he goes, "Hey, here's a Wario World login. make Nintendo games. Okay. And we made it happen. We did it, which was great because at the time that it was the Wild West, you made things happen. It was a great group of people. And I forget how many titles we ended up doing with the Game Factory with Nintendo. So I got in from doing just agency work, analysis work, then doing production work. It was also at the same time I was working at Red Storm doing QA. I don't have my resume in front of me. Geez, so many places. Maybe I should pull up my resume and remind myself where I was at. So, done everything I need to sign. Facebook, mobile, PC, console, production, project management, QA, localization. Never done engineering. Done some Photoshop work. Yeah, I don't know.
So, for folks that have listened to this and heard me talk about this wonderful producer that I worked with years ago who had like a track record of like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 straight first check passes through Nintendo lot check, which was an ungodly achievement.
And my first fail, by the way,
that was
I'll never forget my first fail. My first fail was because I put a lowercase b instead of a capital B on their stupid paperwork. And I remember talking to the testing 123 out of Seattle and being like, they failed me because of a lowercase letter. That was it. I failed a lot. That was my first fail.
That's how easy it was.
Right.
So but this gets into, because a lot of times we'll get people asked, it's like, so how do I get into production? And I always laugh because, I mean, hell, I did some production back then and some executive production, which James adored when I was the executive producer on projects. You don't have to give that look to the camera.
So it's a term. Well, let me go back for a second. I got to thank Nintendo because Nintendo released the best Wi-Fi killer. If you ever do an old school Nintendo DS, and if anyone watches this and did old school Nintendo DS lot check, there was a piece of software that Nintendo gave you to destroy people's wireless. And I remember Nick and I went to Barnes & Noble with the DS, and we actually took down the wireless during Christmas at Barnes & Noble because you can actually change the slider of the thing, and it would actually disrupt everyone's Wi-Fi signal. And so we would turn it on, and everyone's studying, and the Wi-Fi would go off. And they'd be like, what the fuck? And I would turn it off, and they'd be like, oh, it's back up. And I'd be swipe it back on, and everyone's Wi-Fi goes off. And I was like, this is awesome. Thank you, Nintendo. I wish to this day I had that cart. I wish I had that cart still to do it. Right?
Oh my God. All right. So look, I'm getting over bronchitis here. If you make me laugh like this.
I'm actually the tail end of the flu. So
so we're all fancy. All right. So
wait, and then going into the thing you just had. So yeah, Jay was a great executive producer, but it's the first time I've ever learned the word seagull. So let me tell you something. Love Jay. Jay's one of the smartest guys I know. Knows the industry inside out. But there are definitely times that wait,
you got to finish that quote.
What?
The exact quote you gave me one time was that when I was sitting at my desk in the office, I was the smartest son of a bitch you'd ever met. But the minute I walked out the door...
Oh, you're the idiot.
Yes.
Yes, because I'll never forget, he worked at the same office forever, and one day we always make a left out of the door, and one day he decided to make a right and walked into the wall. Straight up, you walked into the wall. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? He's like, I don't know. Yeah. And I tell people about it. Also, it's kind of funny when you're in the industry long enough. It's the stories, it's the people, it's the Asian guy that was one story below us who would put in the toilet. So we had a toilet and we had so many guys, and so we would go downstairs, and this guy would write us nasty notes and take pictures of our cars and literally put it in the bathroom, telling us we couldn't use this bathroom. Remember Ben and I? No,
I don't remember this.
Oh my God, the guy Ben would know. The guy would literally take pictures of our cars and then print them out and then put them on the inside of the toilet stalls, telling us not to use his restroom. It was the pub. We would go down to the second floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Yep.
So after you left, we turned that agency into a publishing company, and you had a big old string. So what did you do next?
After I left, after I did the publishing, I went up to Other Ocean up in Canada. Did a bunch of mobile titles for Play First, and also Sega, and I was up there for about 2 year stint. And the reason being is I had the work visa. And then I came back to you guys. And then I was out there, and then it was Merscom at the time. And then we were acquired by Playdom, right? And then Playdom took us over, and then Disney took us over.
Like almost immediately. I had already left at this point. I wasn't there when all of that happened.
Yep. And then, I'll never forget, working with Matt and, the fact that one moment I was on the phone and I was like, wait, are we talking to Dave Roll, who's the guy from the interstitial screens from Plants vs. Zombies? And Matt's like, I'm going to ask him if he actually wears a pot on his head backwards. So I'm like, no. And what's funny is, like, a couple of days ago, I was talking to somebody, one of the guys I work with now. He's like, yeah, I worked on Plants vs. Zombies too. And I was like, have you met Dave Roll? He goes, oh, yeah, the guy with the pot in the back of his head. And I just lost it. And I was like, it's a small world. It's a small world.
So, suffice it to say, you've done a shitload of production on a wide variety of titles and platforms. All right, so this gets to our first question coming in from Discord.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Discord.
What
questions.
is the most important skill a producer should have?
Yeah, I can't limit to one. It's not to me. I'm gonna go with more personality traits, empathy and communication. I think it's a lot of times what happens is you have to understand your team. You have to sort of understand people you work with. You understand the structure. If you have producers know what the tool sets and Jira and Confluence and blah, 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 and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's how you treat your team. It's how you treat your people you work with, right? To me, that's what sets yourself apart or sets yourself to build from the team. Because at the end of the day, your weakest link is the people on your team. If you're a weakest link and you can't build it, then your team's going to see it. And if they're not having fun, you're not having fun, it's going to show up. So if I had to choose anything, it would be empathy and understanding how your team structure works.
And I know James understands that because I would quite frequently drop projects on his desk and then he would look at me and go, that can't be done.
Well, yeah. And that's the first time I actually, and everyone will know this word if you've been in the industry long enough. I don't even say long enough. And it's called seaguling. Jay was a master at flying into your, like he would wait for me to go to the bathroom, right? And then I come back and there's a damn milestone on my chair and Seagull comes flying into my office, shits in my chair, and then flies away and magically make this happen. So yes, producers, if you're in the channel, you know the pain you are in. Like your executive producer, your level C people come to you and say, you have to make this happen in 4 months. You have no budget. And oh, by the way, all your people are junior and they're going to be on vacation half the time and they don't know English. Okay, make it happen.
You did. I don't know what I don't know what you're complaining about. It's like you always pulled it off.
True. But at the same time, I always pulled it off. But there was those times at 3:00 in the morning, me playing the game Prey, trying to get a strawberry shortcake game, and I have a nightmare about Prey and strawberry shortcake. So really,
was Strawberry the Shortcake the one where I actually had the publisher send you a toy?
Well, no, it's not just one toy. I'm talking about I came back to my office and there was my office was filled with strawberry shortcake. And you literally came into my office and said, you cannot remove any of this till the game's done. Yeah. So yeah. No, but you know what? Joking aside, it was really the team we had and the people we had. I mean, there's a couple of, not gonna name names, tough couple take a short walk off a bridge, but it was fun. It was actually a unique experience. And if I didn't do those times, I wouldn't be sitting where I am right now. So thank you.
And it's one of those things too, that this was, you got to keep in mind, this was 20 years ago. And so we didn't have things like go to a college or a tech school and get a degree in production or Scrum or anything else. You literally had to learn it as you went along. It's like, if we look at the people that we worked with back then, you've been all over the world producing. You came out of GameStop. Mm-hmm. Matt, who's over at Epic, he does what UI UX at Epic now.
He's director of UI. Yep.
And so he also came out of GameStop and was a tester, and then he was a producer, and then he went on. Dana, she's like head of marketing or something over on the Unreal Engine,
which I'll never forget. And she'll probably, if she ever sees this, she'll kill me for this. She came to my office and she goes, "Hey, I think I might have an opportunity at Epic." And I said, and she's like, "I don't think." And I was like, "Shut the fuck up. You do this right now. You don't give a fuck about us. You go to Epic right now. You just like, there's no like stop in jail and you pass go. You walk, like literally leave right now. I'll tell the guys you quit. Go." So yeah. Miss her, by the way.
At the end of the day, I think Dana and Matt might have been like the smartest ones out of our entire crew. That they end up there, and
right.
we end up doing podcasts. And so, all right. So if the most important skill that you need to have is empathy and obviously organization.
Yeah, documentation, and also the way you treat your team, the way you treat your client, communication, right? You never want to get to a point that someone said something that, case in point, and there's a joke here, but also at the same time, it's real. I remember, I'll never forget, we had when you receive anything from an agent or you receive something, read it. I received a work in progress GDD. It was a concept, and I was reading it through, and it had to do with Holly Hobby, and it was one of those points, a hidden object game. And I'm reading it, and there's this point that guy's like, and you pick up a bike, and you pick up this, and you pick up used condoms, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember getting up out of my chair, and I walked into your office, and I just pointed to the sheet, and I said, "What is this? What does this say?" And you're like, "That says used condoms." And I was like, "That's a kid's game." You have to read. You have to make sure you understand what you're actually putting out. You understand, like, that is your role, is to tie everything together. Make sure you don't want to worry about artist 3, what they're doing of post-processing or how they're doing the art or everything, but understand what they're doing. Understand that for today, this is what they're working on, right? Because at the end of the day, you have your milestones depending upon your schedule. You might be doing a TMN, like a time management, but you need to know at any given day, there's that old story. If you got hit by a bus and someone needs to replace you, you need to have all your ducks in a row that someone can replace you.
Hey, right? I got hit by a bus one time.
They didn't do a good enough job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're still walking, talking. I'm joking, man. You know that.
Eric, see, I had another question in there, and then you just completely shot it right out of my head. Oh, yes, the other point on the used condoms thing.
Yeah,
you also have to read this stuff because we live in an industry where people will try to screw with you, and they will put stuff in there to make sure you read it. I will never forget getting a PowerPoint pitch deck for a game based on Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and in the middle of it, there were 3 slides dedicated to the art of masturbation.
There you go.
And
that is an art, by the way. I'm not going to go there. It's a different podcast, but sure.
I called the guy, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" And he starts laughing. He's like, "I just want to make sure you read it."
Right.
He goes,
That's exactly it.
You could not read that and not comment on it. And if we got to the next meeting and you hadn't said anything about it, I would know you're full of shit and you hadn't read it.
Right. And that's another thing, is challenge your team. Challenge the people you're working with, right? Put something in there that people go, "Wait, did you mean to put that?" Another thing is your SOW and your pre-production is invaluable. Your SOW needs to be rock solid.
What's
statement
we
of work.
boil it back to the beginning.
Sorry.
Here. So what's an SOW?
Statement of work that tells you what basically the client and you are going to be doing, what's responsibility, what's the timelines, right? You need to make sure that's rock solid and you have an agreement. And if something doesn't make sense in that and timeline, do not let it go into production until that is completely nailed out. Because if you don't have a strong statement of work and the client actually tries to go above and beyond and legal's just like, "Oh, we didn't see that," like, you have to be the last. And I understand that statement of works are legalese. Honestly, the first 18 pages to throw away. Talking about that, just that one page or maybe 2 pages that just lists out timelines, goals, responsibilities. You nail that. And also pre-production. If you don't have a strong timeline for pre-production, if you go right into production, once again, that's going to bite you in the ass. The more you can do the pre-production, the more you can actually understand what you need to get done, then you're setting your team up for success.
All right. So what makes a strong pre-production schedule?
Getting understanding, like getting the tech out, getting all those concerns out of the way, right? Do you have a concern about the engine? Do you have a concern that, from the server side, the engine's not going to be able to house as many players as you want? Or you don't understand your tech pipeline, or you don't understand how you're going to pipeline for characters. It's setting up all the requirements that you need to get to be able to get in the production, right? I like to say, think of it, if it's your first date, right? You do all these things, and we can all do this. We go back to our first date we've had with whomever. We make sure everything is right. You're dressed well. You got your car cleaned. You got the restaurant. You have everything aligned. Now, if you're married or you've been dating someone for how long, that goes out the fucking window. You're like, whatever. I am who I am. But doing that pre-production, so when you actually go on the date, when you actually go into production, all those things are answered, so you don't have to go. You're not answering those questions during development.
Excellent. What about questions that you didn't anticipate that come up in the middle of development?
You just say "fuck you" and you walk away. No, you face it with the team. Like that's once it goes back to the communication, it goes back to documentation, right? If something comes up and there's a question or they're concerned about something, then you need to face it at that moment. Put it in front of documentation. Let's talk about a feature set. Build out the feature, figure out the timeline, figure out the scope, go back to the client, work it out. Do not make promises you cannot keep, ever. Never get on the phone with the client and say, yeah, we'll make it happen. No, I'll look into it.
That was my job.
Right? Yeah, fuck you. I'll look into it. I'll get back to you. Thank you. This sounds really great. I need to get with my team. All that stuff. Never ever say, yeah, we're going to make it happen. And then your team's like, what? Did you just promise a 3D match first person shooter Dance Dance Revolution game? Thanks. Right?
It fits all the marketing bullet points. I don't know what you're complaining about, James.
Yeah.
We did our market research. That's what the industry wants at the moment.
Okay.
Question. So somebody's asked, is James available for hire? He seems nice. He has a job, and I have a
wait.
first dibs.
My concern about that is that doesn't sound like available for hire. That sounds like available to come over and make me steaks. Like he seems like a nice guy. He's want to come over and do my laundry. Does he want to sure. I mean, if I love. I'm a big barbecue guy, so if you want to smoke some meat, that came out wrong. But yeah, no, I'm not for hire right now.
All right, and he is nice. I will say that I've never worked with another producer who stood up for his team. And James, back then, James was the only one in the office, aside from our bosses, that would come into my office and say no. He really does a good job of defending his team, and he is nice, except when he's talking to me. All right.
Well, no, but at the same time, I'll tell you, there's those moments where you also just have to remember that everyone has a life outside of work, right? Everyone has those moments. They put the pants on just like you do. They have a shitty night just like you do. They just had a rough moment just like you do. You got to treat them and I wouldn't say I did this. I think I did this too much, but I'd bring in bagels to work, or I'd wear my motorcycle helmet and let the whole team shoot Nerf darts at me for a half an hour.
That was primarily me as well.
Yes. Well, true. And Jay had this. I don't know how the fuck he did it. He could be across the room, 100 yards away, and just look at me and shoot his Nerf gun, and it always hits me in the nuts. I don't know how you did it. Like I could be around the corner and I'd step away, and boom, hits me right in the nuts.
It's a skill.
All
right, we got a good question for you.
Yeah,
we're gonna jump straight off the deep end here. How do you go about planning and estimating and costing large game projects while allowing for iteration in game design?
That's a great point. you have to get a strong feature set, right? You can't go into your cost. You understand you're strong. What is your core features that you want to have in the game, right? You have to have your pillars defined. You have to have the game defined. You have to have your feature set defined. Now, that being said, those small iterations when it comes to design, what you have to do is look at the cost of your team and then to break down the structure of what that cost is. And let's not go into overhead and all that, but if you go in and tell yourself, I'm going to add 10, I'm going to add 20% to understanding, and I'm going to go back a second. That goes back to your pre-production work again. If you do strong pre-production while you're working on design, you can figure out what your cost is and say, we got to use this amount of time for my pre-production. And if there's a change in scope and time, I'm going to work with the client and say, hey, we're going to come back to you if there's concerns, right? But if you get out of pre-production and you haven't defined that, going back to the client saying, I need more money, that's not going to work, right? And so iterating, that's a completely different thing. Prototyping, pre-production, iterate so you actually understand what you're making. But a good producer or a good, working with your legal team, figuring out and also, I've seen this by people in the ass. Make sure your team that you have, the cost that you put onto your team is the team that you want. What I mean by that is if you have a junior, and nothing wrong with juniors, we all have to learn our chops. Make sure you're putting the junior, your mid, and your leads on the right feature sets. You're not letting them turn their wheels. You're not letting them go, wow, this is the simplest thing. Why is my producer even putting me on this project? And that's another thing that will help you with the cost and iterations as well.
All right, we have a question from one of my other favorite producers in the world. So Erica asked, any tips on how to position your team for bidding on client gigs when you know you are presenting a realistic bid and the other teams are going to promise the moon, get the gig, and then fail?
Yeah, I wish I had. It just happened to me, by the way. Literally just happened to me about a month ago. Let them promise the moon, because what's going to happen is if your strength and your honesty, if you worked with the client and you said, hey, we can do the X, Y, and Z, and you're not promising the moon, that team is going to fail. And guess what? If you've done your due diligence and you keep contact with that client, I'm not going to say it's 100% of the time, but they're going to come back to you. They're going to say, listen, you've done the legwork. We looked at it and said, we tried with this team and they failed. And another thing you can do is also, if you can, during that phase, deliver something that's playable. Another thing is everyone likes something they can play. Everyone likes something they can actually touch. If you could actually have something in your past that you deliver for another client, always keep that in your back pocket and says, hey, we have a 3D match game. I'm just throwing that as an idea, but I have a 3D match game where you have an engine you already built. Hey, we're going to give you the engine so you can play around with it. You can see how it feels, right? If you have something like that, that's going to set you up for the win. But and also never be the team that promises the moon, because the clients they're going to come back to you, definitely, because they're going to look at the cost and the value.
All right, so let's take that scenario to the next step,
mm-hmm.
because yes, we've been in that process. We know that happens, and we've lost out clients, but
mm-hmm.
we've also been in that situation where that client then comes back to you 8 months down the line and hands you the project and goes, the team that we went with completely fucked this up.
Mm-hmm.
Now we need to get it finished. How do you tackle projects where you come in and you're basically the firefighters?
Well, the first thing you need to do is it's not pre-production because the game's already been done. But at that moment, you need to do your due diligence and look at the engine, look at the work that's been done, like answer all your questions from the team side. You need to take that and work with the client and say, hey, we need time to look at actually what that team has delivered. Because if you say we're just going to go in and do it, and you get to the engine, and the engine doesn't support unloading of memory, for instance, and so now you're running into lag during one of your whatever maps or what have you, right? So you got to do the due diligence and say, hey, we need to look at the work that's been done. We need to see if we're taking it over from another team. I need to look at their libraries. I need to look at their code. And if they can't deliver it, guess what? We have to start over.
Well, it's also the general rule that if you ever show an engineer from one team the work of another group of engineers from the other team, they're always going to tell you that you have to start over.
True. But at the same time, I'm saying, if let's say the client had an engine, for instance, right? Like, let's say there was a team, like you're taking over a project that the engine was actually built by the client, right? And you need to take a look at the engine.
All right. So that leads me to another wonderful segue. And see, James is used to my complete ADD and wandering train of thought. Engines, what parts of pre-production and production are the ones that just need to be kept as is? You don't need proprietary whatever to do it. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. What are the core parts of producing some of these games, or even developing some of them, that you should just use something off the shelf instead of trying to go create it on your own?
Oh, you talking about the actual game itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, that question, without me understanding what the features of what you're actually making, I can't answer that, because what's going to happen is, right, if you look at the...
You're no fun.
Shut up. Because if you take a look at the feature set, you take a look at the GUD, you take a look at the game itself, that's going to answer those questions. Can I just use the built-in Unreal animation sequence, or the Unity for that matter, right? Can I just use their core character controller, right? But if you need to have, so those are the things you need to look at and say, hey, out of the box, can we use this? Because this feature doesn't need X, Y, and Z. So right. No, I can't. There's not something that says across the board this is going to work or not.
All right, so let's take another question then. So you, to this day, work remote. I mean, and you and I, over the years, have done 99% of our work managing remote teams.
Yes.
What tool sets do you use, and what are some of the best practices aside from communication? Because we've established that one. How do you effectively manage distributed teams? Because that's more important than ever, post-pandemic now.
Yeah, but it goes, once again, if you take the thing about communication, Jay, it's using your tools. It's using Slack. It's using Jira. It's using Confluence. It's using whatever tools that you guys use to have that. Because what happens is, working from home now, like the team I'm currently with, they're 7 hours. Like when I get in line, they're 7 hours behind me, right? 7 hours ahead of me. My client's 3 hours behind me, right? And so the idea of like understanding that you have your Jira and your Confluence and your Slack in places for your, Slack being a communication from having that outside team so they communicate, get in the morning, do status updates, where everyone's at. You do your stand-ups, make sure everyone's on the same page. What's your cadence of meetings? What's your cadence of understanding what the structure is of who's available? I don't want to come in on my mornings and automatically have a stand-up with my team, because it ends up being right in the middle of their day, and I don't want to stop their movement. So I hit up my producer and my DM, and I talk with them and say, okay, is everything good? I take a look at Jira, and I take a look at Confluence, or the updates, and I go through it. I think it's having those in play that allows you to understand what the flow is going on.
All right, so I know what Slack and Jira are. What is Confluence?
Confluence is basically just a database for notes. Think of it as a wiki. It's basically a wiki if you add to it. Yep.
So aside from those three, are there any other major organization tools that you use?
Those are the major ones that I've used. There are also others, but they're not as popular. And now I'm drawing a blank of what those are. And I'm sure people are yelling at me because they're like, oh, I use this, this, and this. Majority is it's Jira and Confluence, especially with Jira when it comes to tracking tasks and user stories and epics and all that. Jira, I couldn't live without. Well, right. Basecamp. Oh, I hate Basecamp. Sorry for people who use Basecamp. Sorry.
All right, we've got a question that just came in from Discord. What are grits made?
Oh, fuck you. Who the fuck is that? Who wrote that? Because you know what? because it's because you motherfucker. Goddamn, it's not. I know it's not pine trees. Okay, so let me tell you something. Fuck, you guys are. When the New Yorker moves to North Carolina, and you have no idea where grits come from because you never had grits, and the person goes, "They're from pine trees because they're from all over." Why not? Because grits were. Fuck you. God. And also snipe hunting. Fuck you, Jay.
I never took you snipe hunting.
I know, but I never knew what it was until when I finally found what it was. I think from Mark, who actually explained to me what snipe hunting was. And I remember going to you like, you son of a bitch. I can't believe you were going to do that to me. He was in the Mark of Paul who told me that.
Mark was a sniper. You don't want to go snipe hunting with an actual honest to God Army sniper. That would not be
Yeah. No. But yeah, no, the grits are not. I know what grits are made from now. Thank you.
All right. So for folks out there who want to go the production route, and God knows we need more good producers in the industry in the first place. Mm-hmm. If they're just coming out of school or they're just trying to find their way in the industry, what do they need to be doing? Are there resources that they should go to? How do you set yourself up for being a good producer in the first place?
QA. Hate to say it that way. Get you started in QA. Understand the roles and responsibility of what it takes to make a game. QA is your last line of defense. If there's anyone in here who works for a company that understands QA, the hell with you. QA is extremely important, and I will live and die by my QA. It's my last line of defense. It's my last moment that says, here's a chance to release something or not release something. And I always will tell my QA manager, your goal is to make my life difficult, because if you don't make my life difficult and we release something that's broken, then I'm going to come to you and say, why the fuck did we release this? But to get in the industry and understand, even if you get out of class, to understand the real world scenario of day to day, if you can get into a QA job and build yourself up from there, I think that's the best way you start.
I mean, I'm not going to argue that, because all of the producers that we had came through QA, and a good QA person is not only detail organized, but they have wonderful communication skills, because you have to be able to explain how you did it. And you also have to be able to think outside the box, AKA Ming in the Kung Fu game.
Oh, thank you, Ming. I hate you and I loved you. That one day, dude, hated him and loved him. Never forget that. Going back to QA too, when I tell someone it's difficult to write steps to reproduce something, until you actually do it, you don't realize how difficult it actually is. There's a great interview question for QA that says, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I know that sounds stupid, but if you think about the steps it actually makes to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the amount of steps it actually takes from opening the drawer to opening the bread to taking a little plastic thing off, all the steps to actually make, and I want a QA person to be able to describe to me the steps to do that. And if you can't, then that's one of the first things I would tell you to work on. Work on the steps to make something. Another thing you can do, and I'm not saying for production, but just to get in the industry, get your hands dirty. Download Unreal. Download Unity. There are enough tool sets that, God, Jay, I wish we had these when we had nothing, right? What do we had? MS Paint? I mean, seriously. And so, like all these tool sets that are right here that are YouTube, you can make your own game this week. There are enough free tools out there for you to just get your hands dirty. Do it. Why not? Right? Learn the mistakes, learn the pain points, learn how to make something. At the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself.
Game jams.
True. Get on the market, get on, play games, get on the Discord, talk to people, network. Right? Go to, IGDA is not a thing anymore, but get on, well, I'm saying not what it used to be. I don't, whatever, like I'll never forget, this is a sad, sad story. I remember I went to an IGDA, met the guys who made the old school sit-down Star Wars arcade. I was talking to them, and I was talking about credits, and I was like, hey, I don't know why this conversation came up, and they were allowed to put credits in the game. And the guy comes up to me. He's just like, yeah, but by the way, our initials are in the game. I said, how so? He says, And when you go back and play it, and there's pylons in the game, and as you shoot the top of the obelisks, as the lines are coming at you towards your face, they actually form their initials. I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome, right? Guy comes walking to me. He's the guy who made a adventure for Atari, right? And I'm like, oh my god, and he worked at Carolina as a professor. I remember he came into where I was working, and he brought us he's like, I really want to get back in the game industry. I wrote a design document, and he brought it to me, and I'm like, and that was nothing. I was like working in the industry for like 3 months, and I was like, wait, this is the guy who made Adventure. He's come to me, and I'm like, I feel so sad for you. Like, I don't know what to, like, here's a bagel, because this is all I can do for you. You know, what? You made Adventure. If you've never played Adventure for the Atari, which is out, dating myself, it's a great game.
And James is very much a purist. He once told me that I should not be allowed to be in the industry because at that point I had never played a Legend of Zelda game.
You still haven't played the original Zelda, have
you? Yeah, I have. I beat Breath of the Wild.
Jesus Christ.
But no, the other ones bore me.
See, I was about to say, for people that are right now, they're all like, yeah. Don't tell me I beat Breath of the Wild and you beat the original Zelda.
I do want to backtrack a little bit and explain the whole ragdoll thing. So why it's important to have testers that think outside of the box. And I'm not going to go into the details of exactly which game it is, but it shouldn't take too many people too long to figure it out. Mm-hmm. This is when we were actually publishers. So this game, had it gone to market as is, would have fallen back on us. And this is after the Grand Theft Auto hot coffee thing.
Yeah, but we could get it. We could totally get a discussion about this, Jay. To this day, I think we should have released it. I still do.
That's not the point. I'm not even going to get into that discussion because one, yes, we would have violated our ESRB rating if we had, but
it's just some urine.
So what happens?
Everyone
we're
pees.
Like 3 days before Goldmaster. Back in the days when you actually had an honest to God Goldmaster. It wasn't
one day. 3. 1 day before. One.
We have a guy come in who Ming. We'll call him Ming.
Let's call him Ming. He knows who he is. Who's really successful.
He wasn't working for us at the time, but he had been a tester with us earlier, and we're all waiting to go to lunch. So he just sits down in front of his computer and starts like playing this game. And then he goes, "Hey, are y'all going to keep this whole peeing thing in there?"
No. This is I was in my office, and this is what I hear. I hear, "Oh shit!" That's what I hear, and I just hear them go, "James, can you come here, please?" And I'm like, and what are the first words out of my mouth? "Oh shit." Because I can tell by the tone. Okay, back to you, sir.
So you can, in this game, you control the movements of the various limbs of the Kung Fu person. And Ming had discovered that if you rub the hand on the crotch of the Kung Fu person, this is where I argue that was not urine. A fluid began to fly. And none of us had ever seen this, had any idea it was in there. But here we have, someone come in from the outside who had been a tester and who, does think outside the box and plays games like you don't normally play it. We would have never known it. We would have absolutely never known it until it went, to retail. And then we got some angry ass letter from, Walmart and Best Buy and the ESRB and everything else. But in addition to communication and organization, you may need to make sure that your QA folks can think outside the box. Now,
yes. Now, that being said, it took a lot. I want you to explain people that it wasn't just like I just put my hand over the crotch. You had to put your hand over the crotch and circle really fast.
Yeah. Which gets back to the point that was not urine. All right.
Well, that's how I pee.
Question. Bit of a specific question from YouTube. I'm currently an artist on a project and unexpectedly had to jump into production role managing freelancers. As someone with little experience, what should I prioritize?
What's your next goal? What is your next goal to get that art out, right? An environmental art, or you're trying to do a 3D character, you're trying to build a rig. Like, what is your prioritize based upon the schedule. Prioritize with what your next deliverable is. If you have a sprint, let's say you're working a 2-week sprint, of course you want to be, hopefully like at least 3 sprints ahead of where you're at. Prioritize what those needs are for that goal and communicate with the team. Now, of course, things come up and says, hey, you do your sprint review and the client comes back and says, hey, we really want this instead. And you have to change what your next goal is for your deliverable. And hopefully you're working in Agile, so you always have something you can play and iterate against. But that being said, you should be defining your next deliverable based upon what your next feature set is.
And then work backwards from that delivery point. Here's the steps to make our peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and this is how we're gonna have to get there.
Yeah, and also another thing is like break it down, right? Get into the habit of understanding writing good user stories. User stories are going to set yourself up to succeed. A good user story, broken down to an epic, broken down into what your tasks are. Work with the team to break down those tasks. What is your timing? And understand what the user, because anyone should be able to write. Anyone in your team should be able to write a user story, and a good user story will set you up for a win, because then anyone can understand. And that's when I want to digress for a little bit. At any moment, no matter what happens, anyone on your team should be able to read the game design document or concept document. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's someone who doesn't know gaming at all, that they should be able to read your game design document and be able to play their game in their head the way that the design document is written, because then that translates to what you're creating.
All right, so backing up, what's a user story? And give us an example.
My brain is failing because I've had the flu. So as a user, I want to do something so that the idea. I don't have one in front of me. So if I want to break something apart, right? What's the actual? There's an actual. As a persona, I want to sew that, right? What's your feature, right? As a user, I want to go to the store and buy something, or as a buyer, I want to go to the store so that I can buy this object, right? Let's take it. Let's take that steps further. If I'm a certain person who's in a shop, as a user, I want to buy a battle pass so that I can receive more content. Right, and then if your user story is too large, then you break it into smaller user stories. And a user story, once again, should be written by anybody. It doesn't matter. You do not have someone technical write a user story, because you should have someone whose design or art or anyone says, as this, I want to do this so that I can do this. Right.
Excellent. But you've got to break it all the way down. And that's where
yes.
And that's where, so that was actually part of my job at one point, because I wasn't the technical person. God knows I could do production, and I produced and executive produced several games. But God, I don't want to go back and do it again. I'm not good at it. I know I'm not good at it.
You know what? Don't give yourself more credit. I give you a hard time, but you're one of the smartest.
Well, of course, we give each other a hard time. That's why this is fun.
Smartest person I know. I'm going to disagree with that.
But it's having that person that's not like absolutely integrated into everything going on come out and write that user story, because it helps frame everything else from the stance of someone who's not, living this game day in and day out every single day. Mm-hmm. User stories always seem like, from Joe on YouTube, user stories always seem like an unnecessary abstraction in text, but I've only managed projects for myself. You should still have them.
Well, Joe, they're not, because I'm not trying. Right, that's it. They're not, Joe. That's it. Fuck you.
Next question.
That's all of you. No, the reason being is like, think about what you should always write down your ideas. You always write down your thoughts, right? If you write down your user story, and then you can take about it and think about multiple user stories or building your picture of the game, right? And so if you have a whole block of user stories, you're actually building the game. Because what's happening is, let's say you're doing it by yourself. And let's say you work on something, and then you have those user stories, and let's say you get some funding. And now it's not just you, Joe. It's more people. And so now you have all those user stories, and now you can bring on some technical people, and now they can break out those user stories into tasks. And now you have something that people can actually run with. But your beginning user story, your beginning idea is that moment that says, hey, I want to create this. If you come up to me and says, hey, I got this great idea. I'm going to make a first-person shooter in space. Fuck you. Like, great. I want you to break it down. I want you to understand what are the guns going to do? How's it going to shoot? What's your run speed? Can you double jump? Can you pick up? What's all the thing? Is gravity going to be affected? If I get close to the orbit, is gravity going to be affected? Am I jumping from planet to planet? Give me all the rule sets tied to the game as a user story that defines your game that we can break down the tasks.
The other side of that is, if nothing else, it's good practice for that next project when you do have a team.
Yes. Oh, for sure. For sure. And the thing is, it's not, I say it is also a challenge to write a good user story, right? Because what happens is I've seen it happen where it's too nebulous, right? As a user, I want to make money so I can be rich. Oh, great. Don't we all? Like, what?
Obviously, we don't. We still work in this industry.
That's a good point.
Except for Matt and Data.
No.
They're doing fine.
They're doing just fine. Love them both. Miss them both very much.
All right. From Derek on YouTube, what format have you found helps publishers understand game production timelines and cost best? Holy shit, this could be a whole nother episode. A spreadsheet with t-shirt sizing and features, a Gantt chart, simple chart and timeline. James, how do we deal with publishers that are new to the industry and don't understand production?
Give them explosions. You have, first of all, Derek, that's a great question. It all depends upon the publisher you're dealing with, right? You have to understand who your audience is. It's extremely important. You don't want to go in the meeting and have a spreadsheet say a spreadsheet with t-shirt sizing or features if they don't understand what you're actually showing them. A Gantt chart, to me, on no offense to anybody, I know those people love Gantt charts, they don't help. They're just lines that make that people can easily conflict and go in dates, and it makes no sense, right? If you have production timelines, I think your first thing is production timelines and costs. Another thing is people, right? And then understanding your team structure. But again, going back, you first need to understand who is your audience, who you actually are walking to an office or doing something online, and what you're going to do. And I'm not going to go into details, but a couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting with Netflix, and we went through a proposal, and halfway through it, the guy stopped us and basically said something that just took the whole conversation away, something that wasn't shared with us, right? And so what happened was I actually went back to another person and said, hey, we didn't know this, right? This affected our pitch. I said, next time when you talk to this, I need to know these answers for this part. Before I go into a room and pitch to someone, I need to understand what they want, right? If that is, think about it as your publisher is on a dating site. You swiped right, they swiped right, right? Take that moment and get to know them. Take that moment to ask open-ended questions. Take those moments to understand what they want. You know, when we have this meeting, when we actually, what are you looking for? Who's going to be there, right? Understanding, you know, is it one guy? Is it a whole team? Is it, you're also talking to the artists? You're also talking to, like, if you're just talking to the legal side or the marketing side, it's going to change what you're delivering. So there's not one answer. It just really depends upon the audience you're delivering to.
One of the things that James helped me with, and goes very much into when you're the producer and you're dealing with the business people or the marketing people. Keep in mind, when we started doing this, there were no rules. It was just like, hey, we need a Holly Hobby game on the DS, and it needs to be worth $20. when James said I would come in and seagull papers into his chair, those papers were actually guidelines that he helped me build. So when I was dealing with the client, this is especially true if you're doing work for hire stuff. When I was dealing with the client, I then knew all the questions to ask so that he would have all the information that he needed. So it's very important to have that coordination between the business folks and the producers when you're doing this sort of work.
That is so valuable. Do not let biz dev oversell you. If biz dev goes in and promises the world, that biz dev is setting your team up to fail because you're chasing against something that's undoable. And I give Jay a hard time. He never did. I think he did it to me once, actually. But
the only major screw up we had was the one that you weren't even in. It was that other producer who just at some point rubber stamped the fact that we weren't going to have multiplayer in the game, but he never bothered to tell the publisher.
You mean the same person I told you guys not to hire? Oh, that's right. Fucking, I hate that. No, we're not going to go there. Let's just. No one knows.
I didn't have a say in that hire.
No one knows that. Let's move on.
All right. Next question.
So once again, understand your biz dev, right? Understand what kind of questions they're going to ask. Understand what they're selling, right? Understand what sets you apart. Like, why is that company going to hire you?
There's our next question.
You believe that start from the QA position?
What about career shifting? Do you still believe that starting from a QA position is necessary? I have background as a PM and team leader, and I'm trying to shift for producer. This is a good one for me too, because it's a good chance to explain the difference between what a project manager and a producer is as well.
So I have shifted from producer to product, and I'm going to tell you why.
Hold on, I'm going to pull that question back up so you can refer to it.
I shifted from producer to project. Project to product, because I understand what the client, I understand what the end user needs. I understand about the features. I understand about design. I understand what the rules and responsibilities are to get the game out, right? At the end of the day, what's the client's needs? What's my end user's needs? So when we first started, everything fell under this project management role. There was no such thing as product manager. It was always project manager, and project manager did everything. When it comes to a shift, I do not feel you need to go back and do a QA, but you understand what the differences are. And Jay, I'll hand it to you, but understanding what the project manager and what the differences is between a good project manager and a good product manager is, because you need to be able to clearly define those roles if you have someone else managing project and product.
So how do you separate them?
Think of it as the project. The product is the CEO of the game, and the project is the CEO of the team, right? And so breaking down the team and the responsibilities versus the game, the actual CEO of making the game itself. Not the tasks, not the overhead, not the people, but the product, that user. And you need to work day in day with your project manager. Because if something is to happen and you say, hey, I need this feature done, and they go, I don't have the bodies. We have this feature set coming out at this time. As a product manager, you can come up with a great feature set, but if project manager tells you, I don't have the team to work on it right now, we're going to have to put this on a further sprint or look at our backlog and try to fit it in someplace, we really need to do that. And sorry, doesn't answer this question, but yeah, I don't think you can definitely shift from project to product.
All right, but by product, I mean, are you talking about a traditional producer?
Mm-mm.
Well,
a
producer.
But a typical producer is more project and product, right? A PM and a producer are pretty close.
Okay, excellent. So just understand everything.
I hate to say it. Yeah, I know it's true. like you need to understand, like you don't need to know how an IDE gets written and how the AI of a certain bot is going to work at this moment if I jump and something's to happen. But you need to know why we're making bots in a game and what the bots should do, right? Are the bots stupid? Do the bots need to get to a certain checkpoint? Do the bots need to do this? You need to understand that. Now, you're not the technical person, but from your feature creation to understand what the product is from the end user, what those features and what those items are and how they all interconnect. That's extremely important, is understanding from a product standpoint, what is my journey as a player when we first launch a game, from all the way from soup to nuts, what are the steps the player is doing? At any moment, are they having downtime? Do I have something that brings them away from my core game loop that actually we can offer them something? Do I offer them chat? How do I keep them involved in the game? Yes, back in the day, I played WoW incredibly. I remember...
You still do. I see you log on.
I don't play WoW anymore. Overwatch. There's two games I want to bring up. They're both AAA titles, but two titles that I'm not going to bring them up. I don't bring up what. When you can walk away from a game and think about the game when you're not playing it, that is an extreme win.
So what are the two games? WoW.
WoW and Sekiro.
Huh.
Yeah. WoW. I remember I walked outside. I'll never forget. WoW. I walked outside and I was like, I could use those to use for herbalization. Holy shit, James. Those are weeds in your backyard. That's not real life. What the fuck? And I wasn't stoned or high or anything. Straight up. Sober as hell. The other time with Sekiro, I remember I was in the boss. Forget boss's name. Towards the end of the game. Sekiro is one of my favorite titles, but I was on this boss for hours and hours and hours, and my dog was just like, she's like, I really need to pee, Dad. And I'm like, just wait. And I finally went out to take the dog for a pee. As I'm walking her, I go, oh shit, I should do this at this moment on this moveset. And I remember I finished walking the dog and walked back inside, and I did it, and I ended up being the boss. So those moments of that gameplay where you could walk away from a game and think about it, those moments as a gamer, yeah, far and few between, but when they do happen, they're the most amazing things.
All right, so the actual title we went with this episode was Why You Need a Good Producer for Your Video Game. Let's look at the teams that are out there that are small. I'm not talking dozens of people. We're talking like 5.
Mm-hmm.
How big does your team need to be before you have a dedicated producer? And then how can you be a producer if you also have other roles on the team?
Yeah, that's a hard question, because when I've never actually just done one role ever in my career.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah, no, I can't. No, I just the other day I was in Figma doing design work. I built out this whole let me change, like, I'm not gonna change my answer, but don't tell yourself you're just only this, right? I'm just a producer, I'm just product, I'm just design. You should, anytime you should wear multiple hats. I think a good producer wears multiple hats, and there is not a moment you just say, hey, I'm just going to be the sole producer and not be the bagel go-getter or the design guy or walking to QA and saying, how can I help? Or, hey, I looked at the build and I noticed this. Or, hey, how can I help you? I looked like you just had a problem with your car. Let me help you wash your car. And, it's everything underneath the sun, right? And to me, that's what I don't think you should limit yourself to just having one. You do have one title when you work in the industry, but I don't think you should limit yourself. I'm only doing this role. If you do, then you're gonna kick yourself every day.
So how do you? Let's say you're on the design side and you're on the production side. How do you split that time? Which, when you get conflicts that come up between your multiple roles, how do you figure out which one wins?
Priorities, based upon the priorities of that day, right? And also understanding your team structure. Like if you have a good design lead, and that's another thing is you have to have the right people. Like don't tell yourself I'm going to be producer and design lead, right? It's like telling me that your engineers are going to be QA. You know what? If your engineer ever tells you and says I'm going to be QA, fuck them.
We had that happen.
It's happened so many times in my career.
And I quote, "We don't need to run this through QA because our engineer said there wasn't any bugs."
Right. Exactly. There will be. No game is ever released without a bug. But yeah, no, it's wearing multiple hats for sure.
All right, so we've already gone over our hour, and
wait, you had me till 1:30.
Oh no, we put that in there because we always end up running that late.
Oh shit,
we're supposed to be 1 hour.
Oh, I don't care.
All right, so if you've got any questions that you want asked,
I don't care. I'll ask you. I'll answer anything too.
Yeah, unfortunately, he will. Pop them in chat right now. Dan had to bounce, so make it easy on me. Pop them in chat on YouTube or Twitch or wherever you are, and we'll get going through it. What's the biggest mistake that rookie producers make, James?
Overpromise and underdeliver. Think they can take on the world, right? And don't strengthen your team. Once again, a good leader values the team that they have, right? A good producer also. The biggest mistake you can have is overpromise, underdeliver. And I'm not talking about to the client. I'm talking to your team also. You need to be a strong leader, but you also need to have that. Once again, as I started it, you need to understand that they have lives outside of who you are, right? And understand those values, understanding that, and building. And you need to be the same person, good or bad. There's going to be great times, and there's going to be shitty times. You're like, why the fuck did I go into this industry? Why did I not just become a plumber? Why? I could have become a mechanic. I could be doing something else. Please. I tried to get out of this industry 4 times.
I've done it 3.
Right? But you should always be the same person. Your team should never see if shit goes sideways, if shit goes bad. You should always be the same person. You should always appreciate them and understand, but also be strong enough that the times that are shitty to be able to have that voice, to be able to stand up as a leader and say, hey, this is what these are the next things we have to do to be able to get through this, when I just had to do it. But they do not want you to see, shit go sideways and now you just become business guy and you act differently to your team, because then the team's gonna mutiny on you. They're gonna walk away from you.
All right, so I'm going to go into another deep, complex question here, and this gets back to why people like you and I have tried to get out of this industry multiple times, and we all keep coming back. Mm-hmm. But 2, this is a fundamental problem we have from the ground up in the industry. It's we do this because we love it, but that love is what gets us in trouble. It's what makes us work ridiculous hours and agree to do crunch when we shouldn't be doing crunch and all this other stuff. How do you enforce mental breaks with your team? How do you make sure that you don't have those people that are like, well, I really love this job, so I don't mind working on the weekends to get it done? How do you manage that?
Depends upon. There's a couple different ways you can handle that. If you work from home, you need to have play sessions with your team that has nothing to do with work. Play Overwatch, play League of Legends, which I don't play. I don't know why that game just chopped in my head. It's not my type of title.
But we're talking about team building, not team tearing down. So League of Legends is out.
Right. Play games. Also do competitive analysis. Talk about the tiles. Also, let your team have a voice. Right? Do not get into a meeting and be the only person speaking. Right? If you have to pass around a hat or you have to pass around something, everyone. There's the old adage that says you have 20 people in a room, you got 20 ideas. Of course, right? There's an old thing, if you sit on the planes, you sell, hey, what do you do? I work in the game industry. Oh, you work in the game industry? You get to play games all day? I got this great idea for the game. I bet you do, right? Bet, you know what? I'm sure you do, right? But you got to trust also your team. Like go out and play pool. Go out and do the arcade. Go out and do those things, those moments of let them shoot you in the head with Nerf guns. buy bagels for them, right? It's you have to build a team, and also if that shit goes sideways where you have to do crunch, know that the team has to know that you're going to go to bat for them, right? And with them. I'll be Jay, you've seen it, and I've seen it from you. We're in the trenches with the team. I'm right there with you. Mm-hmm. There's I'm not going to be like, okay, see you guys Monday.
I'm just the BD dude. I'm out.
Right. Yeah. Do this. I hope it works out for you. No. I'll work with the client on the weekend. Just happened this past Sunday. Here I am. I had the flu, and I got a call with the client. We walked through the bill for like 2 hours. And so there are times that you're going to be like, you're going to have to put your life on hold. It happens. Now, try to explain that to your better half that does not work in the game industry. That can be a problem at times for sure.
No. So James, going back to someone said James seems nice. James is that person in the office who always is going to say good morning to you, whether it is or it isn't. And James also knew I didn't talk to anybody before I had my coffee.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Well, wait. Well, let me say the rules. Don't come into my office before 9. Don't ask me a question if I have my coffee cup in my hand. Yeah, that was the one. Do not ask me anything if I have my coffee cup in my hand. And I remember walking in the office, and you look at me, and your hand automatically, it's like a fucking reaction. Your hand automatically reached down and grabbed the coffee cup and picked it up. And I'm like, no. You were not holding the coffee cup. No. So, yeah. No,
he would literally stand in my door. So he wasn't in my office and stand there and stare at me until I responded with
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
But at the same time, there were definitely some valuable lessons. There are times you're going to have to. Times it's going to be hard. You're going to get on the phone with the client, and you're going to have to be an asshole. There's going to be times you're going to have to get. I remember, I'll never forget. I'm not going to say any names where I basically said, if I land at GDC and I don't have a build in my hands, I'm going to find you on GDC floor, and I'm going to beat the shit out of you. I told this to the team we hired. And guess what? I had it built by the time I landed.
But the other side of it is if a team has worked with you for a while, they know that it's so out of character for you that it has to be some serious shit.
True. Right.
If I said that to somebody, they'd be like, whatever the fuck, Jay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. We're going to do this again. James, I truly appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for the people that held out. I think Erica, I don't know if I hung out the whole time, but thank you.
I know every time James is switching jobs because I get a call from a recruiter and they're like, so tell me about James. I tell them, every single one of them, I tell them he's fantastic. He's awesome. But I'll also tell you that if I have a need for him, I am going to poach him out of your studio because he is one of the ones that is the best. So
I appreciate that, man.
Thank you for putting up with my shit for 20 years.
Oh, same here. It's the same here. If anyone wants to lay some dirt, that's the end of the day. Jay, you've always had me back, and if it wasn't for I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. If you guys weren't so cool, I might have not ended up being in this industry. Fuck.
And I did at one point drag you back into this industry when you were perfectly fine out of it. All righty, folks.
We're going to go play some Fortnite. See you guys later. No, I need to take a break.
This is wrapping up 2022 for Indie Game Business.
Is this the last one? Oh, shit. I'm the year ender.
You're the year ender. And this is 4 years that we've been doing this. So
that's awesome.
Holy shit. All right.
Congrats.
Quick, Dan already had to bounce, so it's just on me to play us out here. Once again, thank you to the wonderful folks at Tripwire Presents. You all have been
thank you, Tripwire.
To us.
Thank you.
2, as a result of our stuff with Tripwire Presents, as soon as I get the rest of my voice back, we're going to finish recording the second of 2 100% completely free e-classes that you'll be able to take, download, enjoy, learn from. The first one is going to be on how you go about finding a publisher, and the next one is going to be how you evaluate your publisher and the contract. They will be live before 2023. So we have like 2 weeks to wrap them up.
Yeah, and take your publisher out drinking.
Oh yes.
If you can if you can do due diligence on any client or any team, take them outside of their normal environment, and that will give you yeah.
We're gonna leave on that note.
Ooh, axe throwing.
Oh,
Take
God,
them axe throwing. That's a good idea.
That's a better idea before you start working with someone than after you've been working with them for a little while.
Jay, thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. All right, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Laters.
Bye.